everybody. Good morning, ma'am. Well, we spent our precious time web loafing, and after putting our thoughts in, this is the presentation we came up with. Our topic for today is respondents, its concept and meaning, as well as the vast, widespread, debatable question: should the government be able to censor certain information on the internet? I present to you my teammates.
Ritik Sanjay Wagmare.
Good morning, ma'am.
Riya Prakash Topte. Romil Amiri.
Good morning, ma'am.
Rutuja Ramesh Gaikwad.
Good morning, ma'am.
Sahil Mangesh Devkar.
Good morning, ma'am.
Sarang Manish Kandelwal.
Good morning, ma'am.
Saroj Unni Kutti.
Good morning, ma'am.
And the other two made us realize that in this era of booming technology and connecting people, they still manage to stay invisible and out of reach. This quote: censorship is the child of fear and the father of ignorance. Cause censorship is like telling a man he cannot have solid food because a baby can't chew it. Censorship gives silence when we need speech. It closes the ears when we need to listen. It makes us blind when we need sight. This quote is an ultimatum in itself of how and why a censorship is an unseen cancer to a healthy society. First up, let's walk through what censorship actually means.
Myself Ritik Wagmare, and here I am going through the meaning of respondent. Before starting, I would like to give one example on respondent. The example whenever someone messages us on WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram, anything, the first ever thing that we do is we reply to that message or answer to that message. In a very short, I would like to tell that a respondent is a person who answers a question, letter, email, messages, survey, or anything else that requires a response. You can see the word respond, which means answer or reply in respondent. As I said, that answer or a reply given to a person who had asked something to us, or anything which we give the answer or reply. A respondent is a person who is called upon to issue a response to a communication made by another. The term is used in legal context, in survey methodology, and in psychological conditioning.
The concept of censorship is quite similar to the meaning of it, yet a lot different.
So, as we have seen the meaning of respondents, now let's get a deeper understanding of what is respondents in research, or how is respondent useful in research. So firstly, who are respondents? Respondents are those persons who have been invited to participate in a particular study and have taken part in the study. This definition applies to both qualitative and quantitative. For better understanding of respondent, let's take an example. So, for example, if you complete a questionnaire about your working life and then send it back to the students or the academic who uses it to gain information about your working life in a particular sector, you are known as the research respondent. So, in short, we can say that a respondent is one who maintains theses in reply and whose province it is to refute objections or overthrow arguments distinguished from the opponent. Now, the next slide that we are going to see is about responsibility of research towards respondents. How is research responsible to the respondents? So basically it is divided into 5 types. One is explained study of benefits, explained participation rights and protection, informed consent, debriefing participants, and right to privacy. So, now, explain study benefits. Explain study benefits, in short, we can say that you have to explain them. Basically, it is divided into 5 types. One is explain study of benefits, explain participation rights and protection, informed consent, debriefing participants, and right to privacy. So, now explain study benefits. Explain study benefits, in short, we can say that you have to explain them the guidelines. You have to make a direct contact with the participant. Explain participant rights and protection. You have to basically explain the participant about it. What are the things he can do or what are the things he cannot do. Informed consent. There should be a consent from both the parties. Debriefing participants. It means involving them in various activities such as description, post-study sharing results, post-study follow-up medical, psychological attention, etc. And the last is right to privacy. All individuals have right to privacy and researchers must respect that right. So now let's understand a difference between a respondent and a participant. So we know that subject is an individual or a group of persons, entities or matter in study. So a respondent in that case is one who answers or responds to the questions, written or oral, in other stimuli. But whereas a participant is one who joins willingly to be part of the study as a subject. Now I request my friend to continue. Thank you.
Next up is a widespread, debatable, questionable question: should the government be able to censor certain information on the internet? To answer that, let's start from the scratch of what exactly a censorship is.
What is censorship? A censor is a person whose job is to look at all types of media and remove material. There are many reasons to censor something, like protecting military secrets, stopping immoral or anti-religious work, or keeping political power. Censorship is almost used as an insult, and there is much debate over what censorship is and when it is okay. When there is a freedom of speech and freedom of press, most information can be published. However, even in developed countries with much freedom of press, there are some things that cannot be published. For example, journalists are usually not allowed to publish many secrets about military, like where troops will be sent on a mission. Pornography is censored in some countries because it's seen as not moral. For these reasons, the government might arrest anyone who published it.
On your screen is the world map, which shows where censorship is strict, stricter, or total enemies of the internet. The green part is where the internet is free. The light yellow part is where the internet is selectively free. The brighter yellow part is where the internet is under surveillance. The orange part is where the internet is under substantial censorship. The light red part is where the internet is under pervasive censorship. The dark red part, which you can see on the top right of your screen, those are the enemies of the internet, with a lot of censorship and restrictions. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. So does censorship.
Pros and cons of censorship. Let's see the advantages first. For the first one, it provides another layer of security against identifying thieves. Censorship can identify specific illegal activities. It adds a measure of security to our daily lives. Internet censorship can reduce the level of false data found online. Censorship gives us an opportunity to be respectful to our country.
But the main thing is the negative part, which gets all the focus all the time. No matter how green the good part is, the negative part is now highlighted.
Advantages of censorship. The first one, censorship works to control the flow of news. It shifts the responsibility of conduct from people to the government. There is a cost of internet censorship that must be considered. There is a power dynamic in the society that forms when internet censorship is present. Censorship disturbs the freedom of conduct conversations or the businesses.
We are always in the dark of the real reason behind internet censorship, which is quite unheard of. But now, let's discover.
The real reason behind the internet censorship around the world. Government block internet content for three main reasons: to maintain political stability, protect national security, and impose traditional social values. The reason vary from country to country. Government usually claim to be responding to public safety issues when they shut down the internet. The real reason, however, is often to suppress protests. By limiting access to the internet, they limit people's ability to organize demonstrations. Similarly, shutdowns that are reported as fake news prevention may actually be the authorities' responses to elections, community violence, or militant activities. No matter what grounds are used to justify internet shutdowns, they violate human rights and our freedom of speech and expression. Luckily, there are tools that help people in need of secure connections.
These are the actual causes of internet shutdowns around the world. In 2018, we had 196 shutdowns. 53 of the internet shutdowns were due to political instability, 45 of them due to protests, 40 of them due to communal violences, 16 of them were of other different reasons, 12 of them were due to because of elections, 11 of them due to school exams, another 11 of them were for information control, and 8 of them were unknown because of censorship. The mind-boggling question: why should the government have censorship on the internet?
Good morning, everyone. Why should the government have censorship on the internet? In today's technology age, you won't be here process to find someone nearly using the internet. After all, it is new use for everyone, from reading to news to getting work done, and thanks to social media and video call is one of the most popular channel of communication. In reality, there are a lot of government that seek to control the motive behind censoring the internet of politics, whether under the using of providing election like we saw in the Republic of Congo earlier this year, or completely controlling what information citizens have access to, such as in the North Korea. A report published last year by the independent watchdog Freedom House showed that internet freedom had been controlled for the head ran with an increased number of government taking control over citizen data use.
The mind-blowing question: why should the government not have a censorship on the internet?
Under the illusion that government can protect us from the evil of the world. Pedophilia, extreme violence, lesson in less harm and suicide, race hatred and terrorism. We have every right to expect government to monitor hate and terror sites and arrest and prosecute those who aim to harm others. But censoring the internet will have no effect or insulting us from these horrors. It false security, comforting election cycle, rhetoric to convince fearless parents and scared teachers. And that's just in the West. Having spent time in numerous repressive states such as Cuba, Egypt, Iran, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and China, there is no indication that these nations are any better at protecting their citizens from the darkest recesses of the internet or the mind. Millions of users find way around filtering services provided by Western multinationals. Democracy does not arrive through the net. It comes through people's power. Government censorship merely reinforces the fear of change and shows citizens how afraid dictatorship are of true democracy and people engagement.
The ultimatum of this debatable question is a questionable debate and a conclusion. Censorship reflects society's lack of confidence in itself. It is a hallmark of an authoritarian regime. Because a society should never have the worry of someone being offended and ending up in bloodshed. No passion in the world is equal to the passion to alter someone else's draft. Opinions should differ. It's a proof of us being humans, not machines. The definition of a free society should be a society where it is safe to be unpopular. There are places where everything cannot be taken seriously and should be propagated. Freedom is not worth having if it does not connotate freedom to err. Mistakes are bound to happen and should be allowed. When you tear a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You are telling the world that you fear what he might say. The ugliness of a system should be brought out so that it can be cleaned. The positive conclusion is AI, artificial intelligence, can be used efficiently without any bias to censor things to be age appropriate for kids. The conclusion for the adults is that they should be given a mindset of not getting offended of another person's perspective, because perspective can vary. So the broader question will be, how many things are you going to get yourself offended? How many people are you going to censor? Censoring is a huge process by itself. Instead, a mindset of not getting offended of another person's opinion is the need of the hour. The problems of censorship are humongous, like cyberbullying, cyber racism, cyber sexism, sexual harassment, cyber homophobia, lack of clarity and transparency about rules and processes, inconsistencies in the treatment of local and foreign works, often to the detriment of local work, the censor-first attitude, disproportionate response to criticism or complaints, inconsistency in interagency interactions, multi-level censorship, existing of rules floated, personalization of the process, culture of defensiveness, secrecy and intimidation, lack of consumer advice, improvised public discourse, lack of independent oversight, and setting on the wrong tone or wrong note. The solution to these censored websites are pretty simple. The user could use sites like proxy websites are often the simplest and fastest way to access banned websites in censored nations. Such websites work by being themselves unbanned but capable of displaying banned material within them. This is usually accomplished by entering a URL address which the proxy website will fetch and display. And other sites such as Java ANN Proxy is primarily a strong, free and open source anonymizer software available for all operating systems. Others, like JAB software, automatically decrypts the answer after the user completes a CAPTCHA. VPNs, virtual private networks, are where a user who experiences internet censorship can create a secure connection to a more permissive country and browse the internet as if they were situated in that country. Fishone software allows users in nations with censored internet such as China to access banned websites like Wikipedia. The service requires that the software be installed on a computer with uncensored access to the internet so that the computer can act as a proxy for users in censored environments. Tor is a free software implementation that allows users to bypass internet censorship while granting strong anonymity. SneakerNet is a term used to describe the transfer of electronic information, especially computer files, by physically carrying data on storage media from one place to another. The volunteer organization Information Without Borders is attempting to implement a SneakerNet routing protocol for providing cheaper access to the internet to developing and post-conflict regions using donated flash drives, PDAs, and mobile phones. The protocol is also useful for providing free and open internet access to people living under repressive regimes that restrict free expression by limiting access. This protocol is still under development, but actual flash drives, SneakerNets, are known to exist in Cuba. The suggestion is, if we could answer these questions without being opinionated and debating on different perspectives, I think we can either use censorship efficiently or have it thrown out of the window. The questions like these: what controls should there be over the media and communication? Should there be more censorship or should there be less censorship? What is our opinion of sexual or violent content on TV, films, and video games? Which is more important to control, sexual or violent scenes, and why should they be controlled? What effect do we think that sexual or violent scenes on the media have on people and children? Do we think that countries with more censorship have less violent and sexual crimes? Do we think people were any less violent before the existence of television, films, and video games? Do we think censorship is a good thing or a bad thing? Should freedom of speech be absolute or should it be limited? What is our opinion about censoring religious themes? What is our opinion about censoring newspaper cartoons? What is our opinion of the newspaper cartoons affair? Should people of one religion be allowed to say things which believers of another religion find offensive? Should people be allowed to say anything with another person which another person might find offensive for some reason? Should people with extreme political views be allowed a voice? If a political party advocates violent actions, should they have the freedom to do so, or should they be silent? And if so, how? In some countries, opinions on the internet are censored by the governments in order to reduce potential social instability. What is our thought of this? How far should governments take censorship, and what do we have as its limits? Having answered these, we will be able to see censorship in a different way or have it totally defunct. The ultimatum of such questions are stepping stones to success of a free society, having itself find out the definition of the perfect freedom of speech. We are now open for questions. I hope they aren't deadly.
Does anyone wants to ask the question to this group? Is anyone interested? Okay, it was a good presentation. Well done all. You have taken lots of effort. You have been searched a lot related to this topic. So really appreciable. I think it's a time to give an upload to everyone. Is it so? Unmute yourself and give an upload. Okay, how many of you have been referred the various links, websites, information to collect the information, and how many time you required for it?
Ma'am, it took a lot of precious time, but we were able to find the data, and somehow we managed to make it into one. Like we had to deal with people
to research. Like there were a lot of points.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
the interesting topic. You have been covered mostly each and every point which is necessary to have in this discussion. So, is it beneficial for all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We got to know many more things that we didn't knew.
Okay. So fine. That's good. Congrats for preparing this wonderful PPT.
Thank you, ma'am.